Well, I am here today with Rachael Thomas. Rachel is a worship leader and a songwriter and a podcaster and a wife and a mom and a lot of other things. And so, excited to have you on here to talk about all of that and advice for other people who are, handling so many responsibilities. But before we get into all of that, and how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, Rachel.
Yeah, good, good. I'm pumped to be here, Caleb. Thanks so much for inviting me. Yeah, just a little bit about me. I am a native Texan. My family and I have lived here in the Nashville area for about almost 2 years. We have three kiddos. We've got our oldest, our son Camden, and then middle Harper, and youngest Raleigh. And yeah, lead worship wherever there is a need or opportunity. That was a former full-time role that I've had in the past, leading for kids and youth, and then for a church in Dallas. But right now, I'm kind of in a fun, unique place of being able to just lead where there's need. That rhymed, and I didn't even intend to. Awesome. And then getting to write quite a bit more here in Nashville. I love coffee and Chick-fil-A and Target and Jesus, but not in that order because Jesus comes before all those things. So
Or
yes,
T-shirt somewhere. I love
yeah, it
it.
is. I think I've like almost bought it.
Um, Well,
Yes.
so obviously, a ton going on, um, especially like this year, because I know that you've, homeschooled and you're doing, all this extra stuff on top
Yes.
of regular,
Yeah.
craziness in life. How do you balance it all? Like family and not, to start
Yeah.
off with a really easy question for you.
Yes. Yes.
How
Yeah,
do you
dude. No.
family and ministry? I mean, um, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Because you've been in full-time roles and now you kind of bounce to different things. So
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a unique time, that's for sure. And I think probably anybody would tell you that, I mean, anybody who's doing any kind of like multi-role thing, whether it's working two jobs or being a kid, feel like a kid, a mom with kids, or, homeschooling while working, whatever the thing is, that you definitely can't do any of it well by yourself. Like, you absolutely need help and support. And not that there aren't seasons, that are not hard and that may feel like you're all alone. I know those times as well, but really, my hubs is such a great support. And really a lot of it too is just, I think what I'm kind of learning this year is, um, knowing that not everything is going to look the way that I want it to look right now. I mean, and by that I just mean like, oh, I want to be writing all the time and leading and saying yes to anywhere I get asked. Or, and I also want to, there's just some things that, are going to look a little different right now. And granted, we all go through different seasons, and so that is just part of that. But I think really settling into that has been, uh, oh, what's the word? Peace giving, life giving, because there is a certain, uh, restlessness that comes with trying to feel like you can do it all. And the truth is that you really can't. Like, you can kind of balance it for a while, but long term wise and having longevity and staying healthy and a human that still is like healthy in the world and showing up for those, you just can't. And so acknowledging even your own limits, and going, okay, this may be like this for a while, but long term something will have to change. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You mentioned like obviously not you can't do everything alone.
Right.
Your husband obviously have to work together. Like how do you practically kind of support each other? Because I know he's got a full-time gig as well, and he's
Yeah.
uh, I know you guys have been in ministry together and in different ministries. Like how do you support each other practically?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Well, I think, one thing, and we have worked together before. Not, I mean, obviously, you work together when you're married, but actually, in the same building at the same church, for several years, and even in that season, kind of navigating. Okay, like this is work, and this is us. Like, not the show, but our marriage. Like this is who we are. But I think one thing that has and my husband has this has taken us a while. I mean, we're still learning this, but just like it says in Ephesians about, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ, there's something to that because I mean, I think we've all seen this where you've got one partner or one person in the relationship and it's all about them. And I'm not saying that there aren't seasons like that where you are laying down, you both have made this decision like this is for the good of our family and you are needing to do this and I'm needing to do that. But I think really this daily submission of okay, how can I prefer you today? How can you prefer me? It looks different on different days. Sometimes for him, it means even, letting him go do that woodworking thing on the
Yeah.
weekends and being refreshed that way. And then it means him letting me go and have a longer songwriting time with a girlfriend at night and grab coffee because that refreshes me. But just being really mindful of what brings each other life and making that a priority because again, nobody is super mom, nobody's super dad or superhuman, and you will tap out, you will burn out. No matter how good of a mom, dad, husband, wife, worship leader, ministry, whatever, you just won't make it um, being together, long term wise if you're not doesn't mean you won't get it perfect, but if you're not trying to consider one another and how you can help, you know, bring life to that person on a daily basis. So I don't know if that was a full
Yeah.
answer, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's something I can't speak to. I mean, I'm not married, ladies, just so
Right.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, so, I definitely wanted to ask about that because I know that there are worship leaders listening and watching this right now that are going, um, yeah, I want to support, my husband or I want to support my wife, and I'm not really sure how to do that, and so
Hmm.
I think that's going to help a lot. A very, kind of similar vein, how do you make time to create? In the midst of everything, like you're a songwriter, just releasing a new song. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but if you kind of tee that up, but
Yes.
you know, um, how do you make time to do that in the midst of everything, and while trying to support not only your kids but your husband and do all these other things as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said before, I think there's going to be different seasons and different times and the way that those look different. I think right now, I mean, just being completely honest, creatively, this has been one of the hardest seasons. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people right now. Just the margin is so small. Especially when we decided my oldest, we're homeschooling him. My other daughter is in public school, but um, anyways, that's another story. But that margin kind of, you know, became even smaller. And so right now, to be honest, uh, and this is kind of funny because in regular life, this was often the case too, but just looking for those little pockets. So a pocket for me right now is in the car, honestly, like whether or if I'm going on a walk. But really, truly, the car, I can listen to music, podcasts, just doing things that inspire me and that bring me life. Again, that looks different in every season. And like before COVID, I could schedule long writes at different times. I could, especially after the kids went to bed, like most of my evenings were dedicated to music and like writing and recording and even just noodling and trying to learn guitar and um, you know all of the things. But now I have to use my night hours for work, and so just recognizing that this is a season. It's not going to last forever, but also I think it's important too, especially, and I'm kind of talking here to the mamas, but it's important to not forget that while one of your highest callings is absolutely to be a mother, you also need to remember that you're a child of God first, and that's hard. It's hard in the church, I think. Um, I don't know that I've ever heard that a lot because it's like, well, you're a mom now, that's who you are. But you have to continually remember, like, know who I am first as a child of God. I'm his beloved first. And if you're not, if you're not being filled and if you're not being filled from that place first and you're looking to get your fulfillment from whether it's being a mom, a dad, a worship leader, anything else, it's just going to always run up dry. And so that helps in seasons like this because right now, while I am creating as much as I can, it's not, I mean, if you were to look at my normal everyday life, you'd be like, wow, are you sure you should call yourself a songwriter? Like, it's just not, there's just not as time for it as much as there was. But that's, it's, like, you can't let that discourage you because you remember, well, that's not who I am, but it is part of what God has called me to do. So I just recognize that right now it's just a season. It's going to pass, but I'm still going to be faithful, even with the small that He's given me. So I'd say the car.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. That's good. What's something that the Lord is teaching you right now in this season as a any category that you are that you fall in,
Yeah.
mom, worship leader, songwriter, anything, what's something the Lord's teaching you right now?
Yeah. I'd say maybe one overarching theme would be that idea of the small. So I have shared this with several people before, but I have made the decision this year to go back into counseling for some things, and it was one of the best decisions I could have made this year. And while I was talking to my counselor, we were talking about this idea of the small, about again that margin, just feeling like I have nothing, like I have nothing, I can't, Lord, I can't do anything because I don't have any more time. It's all been filled up with these these necessary things.
Mhm.
And as I was talking and we were processing, I just felt the Lord say to me, you know, Rachel, I can do more with your small, with your barely anything. I can do more in that amount of time than you can do in, you know, like I'm totally like botching this beautiful moment with me and Jesus, but then, you know, then you can do in your like exuberant amounts of time that you used to have where you could do all of these things. My specialty is doing something out of nothing. And so, you know, especially the story that has been so near and dear to me and is just one of my favorite stories in the Bible is the story of the boy with the fish and the loaves.
Yeah.
Um, because, you know, everybody else, and I love it because not so much I do love the boy bringing his little, but I love it because the disciples come and ask Jesus, like, what are we going to do? Like, even if we had all the resources, like,
Mhm.
we still couldn't feed all these people.
Right.
And Jesus, of course, asks him questions knowing what he's going to do the whole time. But I remember I had a pastor say to us one time in a training, and it was, I'm going to mess this up, but I'll try to say it the right way. Basically, God is going to ask you for the rest of your life to do what you can't do on your own. Like, he's going to ask you to do things that require him.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be. Like, it's a good place to be when it keeps you humble and on your knees. But it's also, it leaves so much room for him to get the glory and for you to realize just how much you need him. So I think the power of the small or the little right now, um, I don't know that I've ever appreciated it more. I will say that.
Yeah, for sure. That I love that story. I always wonder, like, because the disciples, where are we going to get this, right? They're
Right.
asking that question, and Jesus, hands them the bread and the fish, pass this out. And so I wonder how long it took them as they were breaking apart, passing out, to realize like the miracles happening like in their hands.
Yeah. 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 Most
Right.
definitely.
They had to be thinking, Jesus isn't going to be enough. It's not enough. It's
Mhm.
not enough. It's not enough. It's
Mhm.
happening. It's
Yeah.
happening.
It's happening right now.
One piece at a
Yes.
time. Um,
Yes. That's
yeah.
so good. That's so good. Yeah.
Well,
I love it too.
we've talked, a little bit already about just the kind of overwhelming side of things and how,
Yes.
just a lot, life's a little crazy sometimes.
Sure.
Um, but obviously, like, everything in your life isn't a burden keeping you from being creative. And
Sure. Sure.
what I sound like when I'm asking these questions.
No. No.
Your children, they're awesome. Uh,
Yes. They are.
he's awesome. So,
Yes.
um,
He is.
how have like your family, your kids especially, but like, um, all these other things around it, have they improved your creativity and your
Oh,
songwriting?
that's a really good question.
Like a positive, because I think a lot of time
Yeah,
I think of things as like, "Oh, that's keeping me from writing," or "That's
yeah,
keeping me," like, "Yeah, I love this, but it's still keeping me from doing it." Like, how have they improved it?
yeah, man, that's such a good question. I think one is kind of like what I said before with my husband, with Jason. He is so encour- encouraging, absolutely, but just supportive. And I don't mean that flippantly. Truly, like um, there have been many wounds in my life regarding songwriting and regarding leading worship that he has directly spoken to or continued to challenge me in. Some that nobody else, I know but him, and so that has made such a difference in just taking those steps, and actually pursuing what it is God has called me to do. So him being my champion, that has been huge. Um, and then of course dreaming together, that's always, having fun together, traveling together, like those kinds of things are life-giving, and they, produce more life in other areas. When you're in health and relationship, it just spills over. It can't help but spill over. And I'd say the same with my kids. I was so worried before I had kids. This was an actual thing. And this is a thing that many women feel, not just in the church, but in general, that once I have kids, my life will end. I won't be able to write. Um, yes, because I won't have time, but also like, it's just gonna stop because it's gonna. I don't know, like the kid's gonna suck it out of me. I don't know, but I will say this: my best songs came after I had kids, and I'm not saying that if you don't have kids, you're not going to write your best songs. I'm not saying that at all. I think what I am just saying is that um, that there is a beauty and there is a grace for those seasons, and there are new and fresh things that come out of, again, those relationships that inspire new things and that change, like your perspective, and also change the way that you write, and even helping you figure out new ways to be innovative. I mean, you're right, it's hard to find time, and the margin is tight, but it also does make you think like, okay, what can I do with what I have? Whereas before, maybe I was more apt to go, okay, well, I've got all this time, it'll just happen. It does require you to be more intentional. But I would say, the beauty and the life and the love that spills over into that creativity is a huge inspiration, for just seeing the world through different eyes. And that, I love that question, Caleb. That's it. Yeah, that was a very layered answer, but yeah.
That's good. Awesome. So, along the same lines, um, community. So, talk about of community as worship leader, songwriter, mom,
Yeah.
whatever, and maybe outside of, your your husband or your kids. I know
Hmm.
that's hard to do right now in this season, but like,
Sure.
what's the importance of community for you?
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, love this question. And we've talked about this before. I think more than ever, I don't think that you can be at the potential that God wants you to be, whether it's creatively or as a leader or in any capacity, if you're not in community. And I know that can be hard to hear because a lot of us have been wounded in community, and that's where a lot of our pain comes from. But I mean, I've just seen it in my own life that God has used community to speak actively to those places of wounding. Um, and I'm not saying stay in an unhealthy community. Please don't hear me say that either. Like, there are times when you need to remove yourself from a group, but when you're in that healthy place, man, it just, God uses that in real time to help heal and speak to and even call courage out in the from, to the previous wounds. It was funny. I was reading today with my son, and I'd never seen this in Hebrews 3, where it says, while it's still called today, basically, encourage one another so that you don't fall prey to deception, so that you don't um, fall prey to believing the lies of sin. And I thought, man, that's so true. Like, another like crucial reason we've got to be in community is because when we're in community, speaking life and encouragement so that our ears are more attuned to hearing what it is God wants us to believe and hear and pay attention to versus the world and the enemy. And when you're a lone ranger, it's just hard to be objective in your own life. Like you think you are. I know because I have been this way. And you think, like, no, I've got this. Like I'm the one exception.
Right.
Again, I know because I've thought this myself. But inevitably, I mean, there's just too many things that are waiting to come and get you. And one of them is burnout. Another is, temptation, pride. Like, and the other thing too, I think, is that you're just missing out on the possibilities of what could be. Because the truth is you will experience hurt. You will experience betrayal. I mean, you're with people. Like, bless it, Lord. Like we not perfect and we hurt each other, but
Yep.
there's also something that happens with collaboration and learning from other people and rubbing up against other people and that iron sharpening iron, learning from one another, that you can't do on your own, and you need other people for it. And so I would just say, man, if you're in a healthy community, pray and ask the Lord to lead you, to guide you, to point you to where you need to be. I know that's hard now with COVID and what that looks like and the logistics of that, but ask the Lord to maybe even show you where, maybe it's your neighborhood, maybe it's online, wherever it is, because it's just so essential.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Talk to the female worship leader listening, because that's somebody that a little bit, but you might decide that I don't,
No,
or the
you're good.
songwriter or whatever. What's something that you want them to know, like as a seasoned worship leader, seasoned songwriter, and maybe it's just the songwriters in general or worship leaders in general, but yeah, anything.
Yeah. Well, you're very kind. Thank you, Caleb. No, I would say, especially to women, get around get around other women who are younger than you, who are older than you, who are different than you even. Um, don't limit yourself to being around people who are in your exact same stage and age of life. Um, Particularly just because one day, Lord willing, you will be that older person, and there will be somebody else younger. But I just think, especially in our culture, we have done ourselves the disservice of thinking that we have to silo ourselves in friend groups with people who are the exact same, not just the same as us. I mean, yes, that's true, but at the same stage as us.
Yeah.
And we miss so much from not just from what people can teach us and then what we can pour into those who are younger, but um, it just it just helps keep us humble and grounded. And I think from thinking that we have this thing figured out, and the truth is that man, woman, w- you know, you need when you see somebody else who is in a different life stage than you doing something that you aspire to or that you would like to do, that's encouraging and right, like
Yeah.
um that's edifying. And I mean, just to bring an example, like I know many friends who think it's really odd or weird to to be a worship leader or songwriter and have kids and still be able to write and lead and sing. But the reason I don't feel like it's very weird is because I have women in my life who are actively showing me how to do it, and they're in their 40s, and uh, the same is true for any other skill or whatnot you need to learn. Again, it just goes back to community. Um, you can't do it alone, and we weren't made to do it alone. And so, especially for women, I would just encourage you to get around people who are older than you, people who are younger than you, to not stay siloed in your own age or stage bracket, because there's just so much to be learned and so much to be gained from being around um, just a whole gamut of humans, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. How about the brand new worship leader, like somebody who's been leading, less than a year? Um, what would you say to them? What's the best piece of advice you have for them, or something you wish you would have known your first year as a worship leader?
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Like, get into community. Like, you know, because especially that first year, there's so many pressures, there's so many lies that you're battling against, even your own self. You're like, can like, did they know what they were thinking when they hired me? Like, I don't even know if I can do this. Um,
I remember
you,
having that thought, why
yeah,
they why
like,
are they
why did they hire me?
I'm not good enough for this.
And so those lies, exactly, like, though, that's a prime example. Like, those lies, you need people who can speak directly to that, who can be objective and who will remind you of what the word says and of what God has called you to. You need people who will hold you accountable. You need people who will, I've used this phrase a lot this year because this is what my community has done for me. You need people who will be like an Aaron and lift up your arms when you are too weak, when you don't think that you can show up another Sunday, when you think, I've done this a year and like this, I just can't anymore. Like, you just need community. And it is such a game changer in, again, helping to speak truth to those lies, because the lies are, the enemy doesn't want you to run in your calling. Like, he hates it that you've said yes to the Lord. He hates it that you have boldly stepped out and you're doing what he's called you to do. And so any way that he can get you to doubt, to compare, to envy, any of those things. And community is a really great place, a really practical way to partner with the Lord and saying, God, I'm going to listen to what you've said. I'm going to run hard in the lane you've called me to, and I'm going to plant myself with like minded people, um, so that we can continually encourage and remind each other of what the truth is.
That's good. That's good.
Sorry, broken record here, but
Awesome. I think we need to hear it. What is changing gears a little bit?
yeah,
We're pretty close to the end here, but I really think it's important. So as we're recording this, we're in November of 2020, so it's been the weirdest year ever. Coronavirus. It's The election was this week, and we don't know who won yet. Everything's up in the air. It's weird.
so
Uh,
weird.
there's a lot of tension, with people. What's bringing you joy right now? What's bringing you joy in this season? Because I think people need more joy, and they need
Hmm.
to be intentional about looking for it. So, what is it for
Oh,
you?
that's good. Man, that's it. Caleb, you got all these good questions. Oh man. Um, okay. Two things that are bringing me joy right now. I would say long drives.
Mm,
I've always loved driving. I mean, long drives, like good music, window down, the
yes,
leaves are changing, like, I can see, the world around me. Like, just I love even drives into the city. I don't know where we're going. Maybe we're just driving. Jason and I literally, that was many date nights. It was like Starbucks, it still is actually Starbucks and a drive. So I'd say long drives. And then I'm really enjoying, I think I've told you this before, and this hasn't changed in this season. I loved and I love discovering, or I am loving discovering, instrumental music and like movie scores and sync music for TV and film, like just discovering a different way to create and learning about that, but also appreciating it, appreciating the beauty of like what it takes to put a symphony together, and
yes,
also just a simple piano piece, and um, just the complexity of it. I really have enjoyed listening to different kinds of, um, instrumental music. It's just helped me to think in a different way creatively than this season. And so, yeah, and always coffee,
yes,
and good food.
right. Well, so if
Yes,
you're listening to this and you need some joy in your life, go for a long drive, listen to an instrumental, drink some
yes,
coffee, and find some good food. And
yes.
We
So good.
feel the joy of the Lord, and the joy of the Lord is our strength. Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen. It's a good word. It's a good word.
Well,
Amen.
before we get off here, tell everybody where they can get connected with you and where they can find your music. You have a song that just came out or is just about to,
Yep.
the first
Yep.
video
It came out
came out.
last Friday. Yeah,
Okay.
last Friday, the 30th of October.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's that called?
Yeah. So that one is called Hope of All the World. And it was actually written last election cycle, literally during what felt like the most, like chaotic time in history. And who would have thought that like 4 years later would be even crazier? God knew. And so it's kind of a long story, but long story short, good friends with the people I wrote it with for a long time. And I tried to share it and release it several times. It never worked out. And this just, as we got closer and closer to the election, felt like the right time. We did last minute, fun little side note here, rewrite the whole chorus, which is only the main part of the song, but that's okay. But everything else is from 4 years ago. So I'm so excited to be able to share that. I need the reminder needed to remind myself. So people can find it on really anywhere you find music. So Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube. It's streaming on all platforms. And then the place I like to hang out the most is Instagram, and it's just Rachael Thomas Music. I do have a Facebook page, Rachael Thomas, but most of the time I'm just kind of pasting everything
Yeah.
from my Instagram to there, and I'm using my Facebook account to keep up with pictures of my friends' cute babies. So,
Awesome. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what, yeah, the worship leader coaching Facebook page is really just the Instagram.
right. Yes, I know this live. I know they're like the same, but
Oh, sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go check out that song, Hope of All the World. I listened to it earlier. It's great. And then Rachel Thomas music, go find her. Rachel is so much fun to hang around, and we've gotten to lead worship together and write together
Yes,
and uh,
yes.
podcast together before. So we've got to do a lot of things.
Lots of times. Lots of times. Yes.
So go hang out with Rachel, follow her, listen to her music. You won't regret it. Rachel, thank you so much.
Yeah, Caleb. Thanks. Anytime. I appreciate it and appreciate all you do.